they're printed on here. The read from Arizona Republican Congresswoman Martha McSally. She is running, by the way, to replace Senator Jeff Flake, who is retiring. Congresswoman, very good to have you.
Good to have you, and that's not announced yet, so just want to clarify that.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, you let me know when that happens.
We will.
All right. So what do you make of what's going on here? If you do run for the Senate, they've got a different view of things than the House. Some say that's a bit more of a chasm than we thought and could endanger the tax cut talk. What do you think?
Well, I think, Neil, in general, I'm tremendously optimistic, and this is must-pass legislation in a representative government. We're working through the sausage-making process in front of everybody. I think we all know how important this is. It hasn't been done in 30 years for a reason. It's very complex, but thank God for the Ways and Means Committee and Chairman Brady and the Herculean work they've done in order to move our House version forward. We're on a path to do that. We'll take a look at the Senate version. We're working towards a similar framework, but the Founding Fathers set it up that we have different versions of legislation, and then we work through our differences and get it across the finish line. So I'm still very optimistic. We have got to get this thing done, and it's important to give our middle class a pay raise, to give them a tax break, a tax cut, to start competing globally again, to bring businesses back home, to create more jobs in America.
Do you think that this does that, Congresswoman? Because I wonder that all the fuss, the way it's been sold, I'm wondering if it's really that much of a big deal.
Oh, absolutely. I hear from people in my community all the time, small businesses representatives and those that are from larger corporations, and there is a level of optimism and excitement to simplify the code, to bring those cuts, those small businesses be able to grow, hire more people, do some more training, raise wages for their employees.
How do you know they'll do that? What if they don't realize the bang for the buck that you're saying, or in the case of corporations that get breaks from money they hold overseas, that they just don't invest it back in buying more stock like they've done before?
Well, what we need to do is be globally competitive again. Back when the Reagan tax cuts happened, we were the lowest in the world, and now we are the highest in the world because the rest of the world has moved out and incentivized companies from moving overseas. So we've got to get back to competing again on the world stage. And we've heard from CEOs and other members in the corporate world that, hey, if we get competitive again, we bring those rates down. And look, I support that happening in 2018, let's be clear, and not delaying that, that they're going to start bringing American jobs home.
Is that a drop-dead issue for you? In other words, if the Senate says, no, we've crunched the numbers in order to make it work, we have to push this to 2019, is that a non-starter for you?
I think it is so important that we do this in 2018. They're going to have to work their markup, and we're going to have to work out our differences in conference. And look, we're under these arcane...
We've worked our markup, and we are just not able to budge on that. It's going to have to be 2019. They'll come back to you, Congressman, and say, well, you know what? Late is better than never. You would say what?
Look, I support a 2018 cut and permanent cut to the corporate tax rate. This is really important for businesses to be able to plan and immediately have us see the changes and the bringing back of those resources and those investments and creating more jobs at home. We've got to look at this holistically. Again, this is hard, but it's important, and I'm very optimistic, Neil. Don't be pessimistic. This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for us to really have game-changing tax cuts and reform, and we are doing it in front of everybody.
You say they're game-changing, and I know the goal here was to simplify things, but I think you got it backwards. I think in order to get things simplified, and which is a worthy goal, Congressman, don't get me wrong, I think most Americans, whether they're rich, middle class, poor, whether they're companies big or small, want to see that their tax burden goes down. That it could get simpler. They can write an index card, great. But if they discover in the end that they are paying a negligible amount compared to what they were before, or with the write-offs lost or allowances, state and local taxes in some states lost, some pay more. That's going to be a big old disappointment. That's going to be a big old Fox News alert to those people, and they're going to be upset.
Neil, this isn't just simplifying it for simplifying's sake. Surely people are wanting to deal with a more simplified tax code. It's a headache for most families and small businesses. But we also need a tax cut, and this is a tax cut. It's a tax cut across the board. $24,000 of every family's first dollars earned are going to be 0% tax rate. The rates go down in the brackets above that. We're simplifying it and allowing tax cuts
will be enough, and even with getting rid of the deduction for state and local, taxes, whatever you do on the mortgage front with $10,000, whatever it ultimately is. We're told the Senate isn't even entertaining that. But whatever happens, it will be substantial enough where people will say, net, I'm getting more in my net. I'm all for this. And I like it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on top of that, with more jobs being created, more pay raises, more optimism, and the ability for people to invest, save for retirement, save in a simplified way for the kids to go to college. I agree. This is a cut, Neil. It's a cut.
All right. Well, you got to make it worth it. I'm beginning to crunch these numbers. And for a lot of folks, I'm thinking they're going to say, and I hope I'm wrong, it isn't worth it. We'll see.
We're working through it, Neil. Stay optimistic.